really the goal for today is for you to be able to walk out of here with a really nice understanding of the questions that you need to ask yourself. Not necessarily suggesting you're going to know everything or have all your problems solved, but I think the most critical component to anything is really being able to ask the right questions so you can figure out what it is that you need to do next. So hopefully you could do an audit of your website and your digital strategy, basically a self-evaluation based on what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so that's really, I think, the most important piece to it. But before I'm going to turn it over to Amber to get going. Just want to really just preface by stressing the importance of your website. It's really known to most, and we refer to it all the time as your marketing hub. It's the center for all of your activities, generally speaking, in today's age. And really, I pulled up some statistics to show you here. It's crazy, and I'm sure you all, as consumers, would agree that really about 80%, depending on the source that you get this stat from, it could be 80, it could be 90, research done before someone purchases something. So before you make a sale or take a reservation or book something, odds are is that someone spent a lot of time researching online before they made any decision. And for consumer-related goods, the purchase cycle, the time it takes for someone to make a decision throughout that research could be upwards of like 15 days and at least 6 web sessions. So they're doing a lot of work on their own. And just think about the impact that may have if your web presence is not up to speed. It literally could make or break you guys. And you might not even know it. You might not know of all of the opportunities that you're missing. As it relates to travel, another fun stat from Expedia, consumers before they book travel will visit up to 38 sites over a period of like 45 days. It's like a month and a half. Think about all of the information that they're consuming, all of the content that they are reading through over that month and a half before they even make their decision. And then another one that's interesting, but a little bit perplexing, or counterintuitive, I would say. So I think you would all agree that social media is a huge part of websites. 78% of consumers are influenced by it, so that's not a surprise probably. But what you might not expect is that only 10% are buying on social. So what does that mean? They're doing their website, they're doing their research, they're hearing from people on social, they're influenced by it, but they're not clicking buy on Facebook or Twitter. They're making their way back to your website. So that purchase, that conversion is another key element to what is happening on your website. So really, can't stress it enough, and you're going to hear across a couple of different disciplines of all of why this stuff is so important as it relates to your website.
I like to think about design as the glue that holds your content together. So your content is of the utmost importance, and design makes it shine and makes it make sense to the user and makes it snackable and easy to digest. It's also the steward that guides users towards your goals or your web conversions, whatever you want them to do. You can write it, you can say it, and design is going to lead them there. A lot of times when you're working on designs for your site, you'll hear lots of buzzwords like CTAs and parallax and responsive design, HTML5, all of these things, and we're going to try and look at a little bit of those tactics in practice and sort of help you figure out, what's good, what's bad, how to use these things, and kind of how to distill all that and turn it into something that makes sense. The first thing that makes good design is good strategy. So what sucks and what doesn't? Strategy, think about big picture, don't rely on gimmicks, so don't use those buzzwords and trends as a crutch. Always think about your goals, always think about your audience, and if you keep those two things in mind, you'll have a better chance of having a great, successful site. And this is a photographer's site, and it has a kind of specific purpose. And we're going to look at some sites, across a wide range of industries today. This site is interesting and it's visually stimulating, and it does some things that we think are great practices. It uses a lot of images. There's not too much copy on the page, but I think this site is a fail because it doesn't ask you to do anything. Like, you get here and it kind of talks at you, and then you're done, right? It doesn't ask you to reach out to this person. It doesn't ask you to buy anything. Like, why are you here? And the interface on this is a little bit interesting and gimmicky. Then you click on something and you just scroll forever and ever and ever until you come to a new heading with no context, no information. Like I said, it shows off the work, but what are you really getting out of this site? This site, we've probably all seen before, and if you haven't, good for you. Kind of a weird place to be. This is our very own Buffalo, New York Craigslist listing. This site is super utilitarian, not flashy, not fancy, certainly not beautiful, but it really gets the job done. Like, you come here, you sort of self-select, self-filter, and you find what you need, and all of a sudden you've got a new used couch. On the opposite end of great sites by good companies, this is a site that Google put out to promote Google Maps and the cool things that Google Maps can do. And this is a great example of like I said, a great site by an impressive company. And I think of sites like this as inspirational, and I encourage you all to find this and check it out when you have a little bit of time to poke around. Sites like this are aspirational and certainly inspirational, but some of the tactics that they use probably aren't things that we're going to put into practice the way that Google does here. So they use this site to tell a story. You can, oops, don't do that. You can navigate, or do that, but it's not what I want to do. So you can the trackpad is working against me. It really is a great site. You can navigate, here we go, around this site the way you would Google Maps. And as you scroll up, you come to different parts of the site, and it uses this bar, you'll see grow, to track your progress through the site. And every time you hit a point on this site, you can stop and look around. So like I said, it's really interesting and interactive, but unlike the photography site, it gives you clear navigation down here. It takes you right back to Google Maps, and all of the UI is really consistent. It also, I don't want to play this video, but it makes use of video, like you can see launched there, and really great photography, which are also really important things to any great website. So again, I'm not suggesting that this is what all of our own businesses should look like in terms of web design, but finding sites like this that use some of those interesting interactive elements and newer features on the web is sort of, it's really key and kind of inspirational to figuring out what's going to make your own business site stand out. This, I kind of look at as an example of a site that tried to be artsy and innovative, and it just went wrong. So the first thing you can see, it's still loading. We can't even do anything yet, which is a huge no-no. Like, it's just whatever they're going to tell us isn't worth the time that they're making us sit here and wait for this to happen. So that's bad experience right off the bat. And if we choose English here, we get another preloader. Like, and there's autoplay music. So, yeah, turn it off. And then when we do get the navigation, you know, this is artsy and interesting, I guess, but again, you know, it's still not done loading. What does sentiment as a navigation element really mean? Like, what the heck is happening here? You know, as pretty as these might be, I think this is a bad site. So they've done some things right, you know, they haven't overloaded you with copy, they've made it visually interesting, but again, I don't really know what they're getting out of this, and if we asked Vince to track conversions on this, his head would probably explode. We'd actually like to show you an example of our own work in the way that we think that we've implemented some of these best practices ourselves. We're going to use Trocaire College as a working example, and if you're not familiar, they're a private college here in Buffalo offering coursework in nursing, technology, and hospitality, the important one. Okay, hospitality, right. So they're really part of Buffalo's rebirth. They want to be seen as part of the local community. They're not too far from Larkinville. They're doing a great job of helping non-traditional students find great jobs and places to work in the community. and we had the opportunity to work with them. This is a screenshot of the homepage we did for them. And some of the practical things that we've applied here are this really prominent call to action. We decided when we were building the site that the most important thing that people could do when they get here is apply now. The site's really for students, even though there were sub-target audiences like donors, faculty, existing students. It's really about getting enrollment numbers up. That was one of the college's goals. So right here we apply now. We made sure that their navigation stayed nice and tight. We really don't ever want to have more than 7 elements in a navigation. Once it gets beyond that, users will just bail. It's like overload and they just can't make a decision and they just peace out, they just go. So brief navigation, prominent call to action. We made a point to incorporate their marketing here. Trocaire is a college that has a really robust student life, but a lot of the learning that happens there doesn't happen on a traditional campus. So we didn't have sweeping vistas of, quads to show. So we focused on the people and telling their story. So this choose your path functionality up there lets users who get to the site immediately connect with someone that's maybe on the same path they are. So you're immediately kind of involved, you see yourself on the site. We think it helps keep users engaged. And then again, right up at the top of the site, call to action for an open house, news and updates, and events. And their events are oftentimes also admission related. So we feel like it's a strong homepage, and like we put a lot of our own sort of best practices to use here. Just a couple more players to keep in mind. Your fonts. There are fonts that are optimized just for web. Great photography is also really important. Crappy low resolution photos, they just don't cut it. I think you lose credibility, and no matter how good the rest of your site is, bad photography just kills it. Video is the last thing that I'll mention. It's really important on the web in general. There's a huge trend, I think, not just a trend like it's going to come and go, but I just think a movement towards more video on the web. So the more you can include video on your site, it becomes reciprocal. The video's on your site, you can share it to social, and your website really becomes that hub, that strategic hub that Charlie talked about earlier.
Two main benefits to digital marketing that you don't always get in a traditional marketing sense is you get a more targeted audience, so you're reaching the users that matter most to you, and you get a feedback loop where you're getting data in from the advertisers that you're advertising with, and you get to use that data to optimize your strategy and really refine it over time and generate a more positive ROI. So obviously the foundation for this is having a website that doesn't suck. Like Amber said, you want to make sure that your website reaches your objectives and it helps you in reaching your business goals. A website that sucks, it won't perform well in search, and it's going to be a bad experience for any users that click on your ads. So the key thing is having a website that doesn't suck and you're solving those problems for the users. A good way to think about that is a search query on Google. When someone's putting in a search query, it's a problem that they're having. And what Google does is it searches the web to find what results provide a solution for that user. So when you think of it in that sense, when you think of your website in that sense, you can really start to understand what you need to do and the strategy that you should take to serve the needs of your potential customers. So real quick, I just want to talk through this diagram. This is a diagram that's, like I said, universal in digital marketing. It can be applied to the organic side and the paid side, which I'll go over in a minute, the difference between the two. But real quick, I'll walk you through it. So the first step is research and develop a strategy. So any consumer insights you have, anything you know about your customers, use that data to help guide your initial strategy, whatever you're doing, whether it be SEO or buying paid ads. Make sure you're using that information to your advantage. The next step is implement and test. And this is where you take all that information and you start to put it into effect and see if it works. And then from there, the next step is measure and analyze. And at that point, you want to take all the information that you're getting, whether it be from Google Analytics or the advertisers that you're advertising with. Just about every major advertiser that you advertise with will give you some sort of data on how your ads perform, how stuff's performing, how many clicks you're getting. So use that information to your advantage. And then that final step is optimize. And at that point, you take in all that information that you're getting, see what's working and what's not, and you refine that strategy. And you repeat those last two steps pretty much indefinitely, as long as you're advertising. You keep taking all that data that you're getting, measuring it, and then optimizing based on what you're seeing. And that's really the concept on just about anything that you'll do in the digital world. So next I'm going to talk about organic digital marketing. And the difference between organic and paid is organic, you don't necessarily pay for every user that comes to your website, or you don't pay for the user specifically coming to your website. Instead, you pay in time and resources. So whether it's creating content or posting on social media, whatever that strategy is, you're not necessarily paying for that specific user. So that's an important difference. With paid, you're usually paying for a specific user, whether it's a cost per click system or a cost per impression system. You're usually paying something out in a monetary sense. So organic is important in any industry. More and more users are turning to search, and they're turning to mobile phones to search and research, like Charlie was saying in the beginning. So it's important to be there when that customer is searching for your product or your service. So having an organic strategy for the search results is very important. Especially in a mobile sense, like Amber was saying, you want to be responsive, you want to show up correctly on a mobile phone. It's even more important now because with the latest Google updates, any site that's not responsive or not mobile friendly is not going to show up in searches for when someone's searching on their phone. So that's very important to realize, as you're missing out on a large share of people who are performing searches on their phone. So some of the things that are taken into account when Google, Yahoo, and Bing generate their search results are moving from on-site tactics. So it's not necessarily a short-term thing where you just make some changes on the website and all of a sudden you're going to be ranking. The algorithms are changing to take into account more uncontrollable and less controlled factors like reviews on social media, engagement that you get on social media, things like post likes, how many people are commenting. Sharing is a good metric because if someone's sharing your content, it means it's good content and people want to share it. So it kind of builds that credibility with the search engines. Another major factor is inbound links to your website. So any website out there that's linking to your website, that shows credibility to Google and search engines. It's showing that this website thinks what you're putting up is credible, and it gives you that authority in your industry. Next, I'll quickly talk about paid. Like I said, the difference here is that you're paying for the individual user. So you're buying advertising on any of the various channels. There's so many different ways to advertise. Some of the more popular ones being Facebook, Google AdWords. I'm sure a lot of you guys might advertise on Yelp. But there's various ways you can go about it, and that goes back to that step I was saying. Research, understand where your consumers are, where your potential customers are, and try and start with those channels. Something I always say with paid marketing is to start small. Start on a few channels, see what's working, and measure and analyze, and then you can determine what strategy, if you should keep going with that, if you're getting results from it, or if you should change and try something different. So there's a couple things you need for a paid strategy to work. You need, obviously, a budget, and then you also need the knowledge and resources to manage those ads. A set and forget strategy typically doesn't work in paid advertising. In rare occasions it will, but usually it takes that refining and that measuring your data and understanding what's working and what's not to kind of get to a point where you're generating positive ROI. Very rarely do you advertise on a website and you're automatically going to get a bunch of new customers. It takes some time to figure out what people respond to, what's working, what's not. Taking to the next slide, which is analysis and reporting. It's important to track and analyze, like I said. One of the great tools for that is Google Analytics. It's a free service that Google offers, and all it takes is adding a tracking script to your website, which you may need a developer's help with, but you add that tracking script and Google will start taking information from your website. How many sessions you're getting, how many different users, how many pages views, pages per session, all this information to help you determine if your website's working for you. Beyond that, one thing you want to set up is conversion tracking, which Amber hit on briefly. Conversion tracking tests, or keeps track of the most important goals of your website. So this could be making a reservation at your restaurant, filling out a contact form, clicking a click to call button, anything like that. Whatever's important to your business, you want to be tracking on your website. Otherwise, you have no idea if it's working for you or not. Unless a customer comes in and explicitly tells you, oh, I came here because I was on your website, you don't know if your website's really working for you. So setting up conversion tracking is a huge component in your overall digital strategy. And within Google Analytics, it segments that traffic by default from where those people are coming from. So it'll tell you how many people are coming to your website from organic, how many are coming from direct typing in the website and right into the URL bar, how many are coming from social. It does that by default. And beyond that, you can use URL parameters, which is a small addition onto the URL that you use in any advertising. And that'll tell you exactly at a campaign level where those people are coming from. And that's extremely powerful because you can see which campaigns are working. And then when you combine that with the conversion tracking, you can see which campaigns are actually converting. So where are these people coming from and whether or not that money that you're dishing out in these various channels are working for you, and if you're getting positive ROI. So it's an important part of it is tracking and then segmenting your traffic. You can get a lot of good data and you can really justify spending money on a certain channel.
So after hearing everything you heard, can you affirm that your website sucks? Maybe? It's okay. Again, we wanted you guys to be able to ask yourself the appropriate questions to determine if your website sucks. I wonder if any of you found it curious that only part of what we talked about was really what it physically looks like, right? I'm wondering, did you think that we were going to just talk about the design and the colors and the photos and stuff? Or did you expect that there's a lot of other forces at play that really determine if your website sucks? All of those components fit within these buckets here in terms of the takeaways that we want you to be thinking about. Beauty versus function being the first one. Obviously, we do care if the website looks good and is visually appealing to your customer base and your audience. But if it doesn't work, you're toast, right? You gotta make sure that everything that you want it to achieve is actually there. And if it doesn't work, it's something that can kind of be taken a couple of different ways. It could be in its most literal sense, meaning like you've got broken links, you got pages that don't load, you've got copy that doesn't show up the right way. You know, those are more functional things that you would expect from a functionality perspective, but also, you know, if it doesn't meet the goals that you're trying to achieve, you know, it's not working, right? You're not able to convert, you're not able to generate what you want, it's not working. So those are two very important considerations, beauty versus function. Find the right balance, make sure it works, but also make sure it's visually appealing. All of these really relate together, you'll see too. Now we talk about knowing your audience. That's critical. You have to understand who it is you're trying to get to your website. What type of information might they be looking for? Where are they? You know, what type of platform or device are they using to consume the information that's going to be on your website? You need to pay attention to all of those things. Because if you're not, they might come to you, they might get there and see a really great design, but not find anything that they're looking for, and boom, that experience is terrible for them, right? So if you don't know that, you could be losing out on opportunities without even really knowing. Now the mobile world, this ties into knowing your audience as well. We all know, everybody have a smartphone here? Everybody has a smartphone. So the trend just continues year over year where more and more people are doing more and more stuff on their phones or their tablets, right? So you have to plan for that. You have to understand that from a responsive design perspective to make sure it shows up the right way in an easily digestible way. But you also have to understand the frame of mind that people are in when they're operating on a phone versus in front of their laptop. The decisions that they make and sometimes the activities that they do are different, can be different, and it's important to realize that. I think it's going to continue to just go more and more mobile, and basically, you're kind of already toast if you're not operating in the mobile zone, but it's certainly going more and more in that direction. Again, another related component is your site has goals. It needs to have goals in order for you to determine if it's being used appropriately and if it's effective. But those goals need to align to your marketing goals. So depending on the type of business that you're in and what you're trying to achieve is going to determine what your goals on the site should be. So, I mean, you can take it at a very simple level, if you're a restaurant and you want people to see what kind of food you sell and make a reservation, then those better be the first things that they're able to navigate to, right? If you want to sell more products, if you're a consumer goods type place, a packaged goods, some type of retailer, you want to sell products, well then your e-commerce needs to be built in and fully integrated and make it a really seamless experience, right? If you want to grow your brand and really tell a great story, well your content better be awesome. Your engagement needs to be thought through, like your engagement levels as it relates to social media and the like. So those are all of the things that you need to be considering when it comes to goals. If you don't have them, you're not really able to align any type of strategy to it, and you're kind of shooting in the dark hoping for success without tying back to something and measuring and benchmarking and so on. Driving traffic. The team knows I love to use this metaphor because I'm a big Field of Dreams fan. I'm sure you've heard the line, if you build it, they will come, right? Okay, sort of. That only works for the ghosts in Field of Dreams. You can build a great website. It could be beautiful, it could work, but if nobody can get there, it's useless, right? So if you build it, they will come does not apply for websites. All of that other stuff that they talked about beyond the design, beyond the functionality, needs to be thought through and focused on to ensure that people are there and people are visiting it. So it's those strategies around organic search and paid advertising and optimization, metrics tracking, and all of those things, critical, which obviously just ties into what I just said. Once everything's in place, you're in pretty good shape. It just starts a cycle of measuring and optimizing. The work should get easier as you do it for any length of time, but it shouldn't ever end, okay? You should be continuing to look for trends and patterns and areas of opportunity within your website and its data. It's all there, and it's super easy to find. You just have to pay attention to it. First and foremost, does it work? Does it function? Does it achieve the goals that you need for your company, for your organization, your brand? I'm going to flip over here real quick. So if you answered no, definitely sucks, okay? If it does work and it does do those things, and then the next question is, does it look good? If you're not sure it doesn't look that great, we move over here. It probably sucks, but we'll go a little bit further. Can people find it? If they can't find it, yep, it sucks. But if it doesn't look too great, but they can find it, all right, what's the next question? Is it responsive? No. Doesn't work on a phone or a different type of device. Still pretty sucky. If they can find it and it is responsive, it works on different platforms, that's probably the least amount of sucking, okay? We go on to the other side where it works and it looks good. Can people find it? Can they navigate to it? Are they gonna come across it easily? Yes or no? The answer is no. ... It probably sucks. And then with the last obvious question, just to repeat again, is it responsive? Yes or no? If it is responsive, you're golden. If it's not, you're just semi-sucky. So that's a really quick, easy decision tree for you to think about all of the things that factor into it. Again, I want to stress and reiterate, it's not just about how does it look. That's important, especially from a creative perspective. If you have an organization or a brand that prides itself on being creative or unique, that's going to be critical. But it's only a piece of the puzzle. All right. So as we talked about whether or not your website sucks, it's those other things that tie in that really help set you apart.